Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another review of WandaVision. Today, I'm looking at the second episode of. I don't know if there's supposed to be multiple seasons of this. I think there's only one of WandaVision. Yeah, they actually have titles now. When I did the first episode, they were just episode 1 and episode 2. But shortly after episode 2 came out, they retroactively added some titles. Episode 1 is now filmed before a live studio audience, and episode 2 is now Don't Touch That Dial. I had talked a little bit about kind of the premise in after the first episode. The second, we're going to get a little bit more into that. I kind of had sort of merged together the first two in my head a lot. I watched them back to back, as I'm sure a lot of people did. The episode kind of opens on this very silly kind of intro. It kind of sets the tone for this episode a little bit more even than the previous one. This has a light premise, has a light kind of vibe to it. The first bit of this is Vision and Wanda in their room getting ready to, sleep, and they keep hearing a noise outside, and there's a lot of like silly, I'm scared of the noise kind of hijinks and things, and they decide at the end that, it must be like a branch on a tree. There's some cute like hard cuts in there. They do a bit after I think the third time they hear the loud noise. Wanda kind of like gets scared and like the beds come together, and then she gives it one more thing and it becomes one large like queen or king sized bed, as opposed to the two separate ones that they had before, which might actually be a bit of commentary too on like the progression of like romance in TV, or like portrayals of like couples and married couples and things like that, where in the older days, I think they did usually generally not show them having one bed, and then there came a point in the 60s into the 70s and all of that where it became a lot more common to just be like, well, yeah, they're going to share a bed, they're married, like whatever, not like a huge deal there. But we'll get back into that a little bit. The accent, there's something in the first two episodes, it's very clear that Wanda is not using her, like she's speaking with like a Midwestern American accent as opposed to the Sokovian accent, which is kind of Russia light, I guess. In the Avengers movies and the MCU in general. So it's interesting. I'm curious how that's going to play into it, though, generally speaking, a lot of these like sitcoms are very like Midwestern Americana kind of vibe to them. So if this is kind of all like absorbed into the medium a little bit, then it would kind of make sense. But it's interesting because she has this like different accent from what she's had before, but Vision still has his, British accent. So which is double interesting because in the first episode, some of the mishaps Vision excuses as being Sokovian tradition, even though she has no noticeable accent whatsoever, and nobody mentions that at all. And also in the first episode, when things get serious and Wanda tells Vision to like help Mr. Hart, her accent seems to slip back to her actual one. It's kind of hard to tell because it was literally Vision help him in kind of like low sort of speech. But it seemed like she had gone back to her original accent there. So this episode, the first episode was sort of more I Love Lucy-ish. This one is a bit more of a Bewitched or an I Dream of Jeannie. I keep wanting to say I Love Jeannie. And so you get your little intro, the WandaVision like thing. There's like this chorus of people that just say WandaVision as like an animated sequence plays out. Very reminiscent of Bewitched in particular, but also I Dream of Jeannie. And the whole episode is kind of founded on Wanda's magical abilities. They are a little bit more physically, they're more similar to, I guess they're both. So in Bewitched, I can't remember the main character's name in Bewitched. But when she uses magic, she like wiggles her nose. And she kind of does scrunches up her face and does a thing. I Dream of Jeannie crosses her arms and does that, and like usually disappears is kind of her thing. But The sound that is made when Wanda does magic, usually like with her finger, it sounds very much like the wiggle sound from Bewitched. So that was kind of a neat little thing to have there. I had said last time in the first episode that something that was kind of interesting about the commentary they were making was that Vision goes to his work and there's no real understanding of what his job actually is. And I figure, all right, if they're going to keep referencing specific sitcoms, I'm going to see how many sitcoms I can even remember from the ones that get brought up here, which ones I can remember the actual occupations of anyone involved. In I Love Lucy, it was obviously there was Lucy, played by Lucille Ball, and you had Ricky Ricardo, played by I think Desi Arnaz. I don't remember what Lucy did, if she did anything. I remember she worked at the chocolate factory, the little thing in probably one of the most famous 3 minutes of television ever produced. Ricky Ricardo, I think, was like, I think he was he was either a singer in a band or he was like a TV host, a TV presenter, or merged the two. I don't entirely remember. For Bewitched, I literally do not remember. I remember Dick York was like the guy from that show, and I do not remember what he did at all. And in I Dream of Jeannie, is that the one that had the two Darrens? I think that was one where like they had a guy named Darren who played the husband, and then he got replaced by a different guy named Darren. There's like a whole trope about it, but he is an astronaut. I remember that very clearly, that he was an astronaut, and I think he found Jeannie's bottle when he landed back on Earth from his space thing he did or something. This is probably going to get easier as time goes on when these sitcoms become ones I'm a little more familiar with just in general. Like I couldn't tell you the plot of a single Bewitched or I Dream of Jeannie episode off the top of my head, and I Love Lucy, it's the chocolate one, and that's about it. That's all I really got there. So we'll see how that goes. So they have the live studio audience and the laugh track that plays in a few spots, and it's noticeably absent during the two, I guess, really. No, there's three. There's three really big dramatic moments, and we'll get into those in a sec. This episode also features the first kind of on-location shooting. I mean, I'm sure it's a huge lot, like a big Hollywood set where they do like the outdoor thing, but it's not being done in the context of the WandaVision inner show. It's not being done within buildings the entire time. So there's a talent show for the children, which the whole place chants it a lot. I've got kind of a theory coming at the end of this episode that I kind of want to see how it goes, but they're doing a talent show, and that's shot outdoors in Westview where this takes place. So that was kind of neat and a nice expansion of, because in the previous episode, it was basically their home and Wanda and Vision's home and Vision's office. And I think that was literally the only places you saw outside of the little introduction bit. Here you see their home. You see out on the street a few times. You see, I think, the library. You see wherever Dottie's. We'll talk about Dottie in a minute, but they have a planning committee for the talent show and stuff in town in general. They have a little meeting by, I think, a pool. And then there's obviously like the outdoor gazebo-y zone where they have the talent show. So there's a lot more stuff going on. And I think after the first episode kind of set up the premise, this did a good job of kind of expanding the world a little bit and talking about and showing you some of the more characters. So the episode kind of properly starts with Vision and Wanda preparing for the talent show where they're going to do a magic act of illusion and glamour. His faithful assistant kind of deal. And then it's really common like stage magic kind of things, like, the disappearing box and rabbit out of a hat, that kind of deal. So nothing too intense. And after, I think Vision like leaves, and Wanda's here. She steps outside and she hears something. She looks into the bushes, and it's our first like explicitly weird thing here. At this like in her face kind of weird thing is she pulls out a toy helicopter. But the toy helicopter is in full color, red with, I think, like a yellow band across it. And it's got that same logo from the first episode's kind of ending. I think it was on like a notebook or a book or something. And it's like a sword in a circle, or maybe a sword in like a capital Omega. And I have to wonder, and again, I don't know the details on this. Like, this gets into stuff in Marvel that I'm not really that familiar with, but there's an organization that's called SWORD that I want to say is a bad guy organization that's made in opposition to S.H.I.E.L.D. I probably have that wrong, but I'm wondering if that's kind of what's going on here. As she sees that, Agnes comes up and pulls Wanda over to meet with Dottie and the planning committee. And they go to the planning event. Dottie is sort of the woman in charge. She functionally runs the town, like that kind of a social sort of setup with this small town where she kind of just runs everything. And this is where we meet Geraldine, someone that Wanda makes friends with very quickly. She seems very nice. She also seems a little bit off herself. She says that she doesn't really know what she's doing there. Or no, she says she doesn't know how she got there. And I think that's important as well. Vision joins the Neighborhood Watch, which turns out to just be kind of a gossip club for the men of the town. They hang out at the library and just talk shit about other people in the town. Vision kind of almost mildly lets it slip that he doesn't eat and then backpedals. Has some big red. There's some fun product placement. I'm sure there's some interesting product placement from companies specifically that existed and were very popular during some of these decades. It would not surprise me at all if because Big Red still is around as far as I'm aware. I think are they a Wrigley brand? I don't know, but they were huge back like 50, 60 years ago. So it would not surprise me at all if they were like, hey, let's get some retro stuff in here. Don't be surprised if you see a Coca-Cola in like the 90s portion, or like, I don't know. They could do some like chocolate bars, Hershey, obviously. But anyway, so he goes there, he has some Big Red and then accidentally swallows it, which you get a cute little animated sequence, which again, Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie would do stuff like that. That it's kind of getting into his gears. He's never eaten anything before until now. He's accidentally swallowed it, and it has really bad results as he turns up to the talent show, and he is just a mess. Like, it seems like the equivalent of him being like debilitatingly drunk. Like, he has trouble walking. He has really messed up speech. He has no memory, really. Like, he just can't keep it together at all. So that's going to be a thing shortly. Dottie, after the planning committee meeting, has Wanda stick around to help clean up and kind of accuses Wanda of being up to no good and says that she doesn't believe her, like, to her face when she says that she doesn't mean anyone any harm in the town kind of deal, which is already kind of a weird confrontation. And then the radio, this is the thing I was thinking about yesterday, or in the previous episode, the radio is playing music very loudly, but through there you can hear a voice kind of cutting through it saying like, who is doing this to you? Wanda, where are you? Who's doing this to you? Which Dottie even seems kind of nervous about this. And I kind of am starting to wonder, like, is everybody trapped? Like, is this whole situation like contained in a way where everybody is trapped? Because I was thinking about it after the first episode where Mrs. Hart is like saying stop it, smiling, but is visibly kind of like upset in her eyes. You could see her eyes watering a bit, and it almost seems like everyone is kind of enslaved to the TV in a sense, and are kind of forced to play their roles in this, but don't have any like real agency here. So you've got Mrs. Hart in the first episode, you've got Dottie here, Geraldine saying that she doesn't really know how she got there. There's a lot of that kind of going on. And also adding to this, we have a commercial for a Strucker watch. So Strucker was the name. So Baron von Strucker was the name of the Hydra. I think he was the head of Hydra for a brief while in the lead up to and at the very beginning of Avengers Age of Ultron. He was the one who used Loki's scepter and the Mind Stone contained within to give Wanda and her brother Pietro their powers in the first place. He kind of kept them there and he was captured by Captain America and the Avengers at the start of the movie, but was killed by, I think, Ultron shortly after his capture. So it's interesting. I'm curious why Strucker is coming here. So is it more like Wanda's memories are kind of doing a thing here? There's a Hydra logo right on it. It even says the word Hydra next to it. The same two people from the first episode's commercial are there as well. And the question is, like, are these two in control of this whole thing? Are they also slaves to the program? Like, what's going on here? And the quote and the ad they use, they're doing a really good job of like double speak in this show so far. The slogan for the Strucker watch is "He'll make time for you," which obviously is like, it's already a double entendre between like him and his wife or girlfriend, who he's talking to, who, you know, the two characters in the commercial, like, he'll make time for you, but also, it's a watch, he'll make time for you, but also like, he'll make time for you in reference to this thing that everyone seems to be trapped in, locked in a past time that is moving forward very quickly. Also, there's like a lot of pieces that are kind of forming really fast here. They do their magic show. It's very fun and cheeky stuff. Vision keeps messing up the act and inadvertently uses like his power to like levitate at one point, which Wanda has to very quickly use her own magic to cover for, like making like a winch appear and like a pulley and a rope so that it looks like, I was pulling him up the whole time, and there goes the rabbit that was in the hat, and they finally do the big box that Wanda's supposed to step into and disappear, and it's like a spinning back so she can kind of step behind it. But he closes it and starts the trick while she's still standing outside it. And then the crowd, which is people from the town, are all saying, "What's in the box? Who's in the box? Who's in the box?" And so they're like, "Well, shit, what do we do?" So Wanda very quickly does a little thing, and Geraldine appears from within the box. And she even says afterwards, she's like, "1 second I was standing backstage, and the next I was in the box. What happened?" And Vision, who at this point I think he still is all gummed up. By now he's had the gum removed. Says like, a magician never reveals his secrets. He leaves that to his assistant. And Wanda says like, and she's not talking. And the specific use of that phrase makes me wonder if she's explicitly like being tortured, like maybe not so much tortured though. You could see this as being torture, but like, they're trying to get information out of her by keeping her trapped in this world. Like maybe they're trying to figure out how, like, the secret to Vision's existence in order to create their own vision or something. Like there's something going on. But regardless, Dottie and the planning committee loved the act. Every time the word talent show came up, everyone that was around in the town would say, "For the children," like really like monotone together. Think if you've seen Hot Fuzz, it's the "for the greater good" of this episode. So there's also the possibility, because when they get home, she is suddenly pregnant, like not just a little pregnant, but like probably 5-ish months along, maybe 6 months pregnant, and probably like 4 or 5 actually now I'm thinking about it. But I have to wonder also, as well, as like, is she being held captive and they're trying to steal her kids or something? Like there's some really dark shit that could go on with that. The award that they receive after their comedy bit is the comedy performance of the year. And you know they're gonna try pitching this to get a nomination for Emmys anyway, and they have a little award thing, and I hope that they use that clip, or I'm sure they'll use a screen cap of that for like the For Your Consideration or something. Mrs. Hart shows up actually in this episode to clap, which is nice. But yeah, so as we get to the end of the episode, suddenly she is pregnant, and they hear a noise outside again, which is weird because they thought they had figured everything out about this, and they step outside. Wanda and Vision, they look down the street and they see a manhole cover sliding away, and you see a beekeeper, just a person in a beekeeper outfit, climb out of the sewers and look at Wanda, and she just says no. And all of a sudden you hear like a VCR click and everything rewinds the last like minute. She's pregnant again, and then the episode actually like continues. It doesn't get interrupted from there. So that's a whole thing. She at least has some kind of control over what's happening. So it could be her accidentally trapping everybody in this whole thing out of grief or something, which is interesting because, like, it's been at this point in the world of the MCU, I forget. I think I'm trying to remember if she I think she turned to dust at the end of Infinity War. I'm relatively sure. I actually had this written down somewhere, and now I'm like, let's see. I don't know why I can't remember. Yeah, no, she gets dusted. So she loses 5 years, but regardless, Age of Ultron, I think, takes place in like 2060. Like, there's a good 2 to 3 years of time that's there. Obviously, everyone heals from like grief differently and grieves differently. But it's just, I'm curious if that's got something to do with it. I don't know. But she touches his face, turns to color, and I think we're now entering like the 60s, maybe even into the 70s, going into episode 3. So it was a good episode. It was a little bit, in some ways, it was actually a little sillier than episode 1. Episode 1 was very like straightforwardly sitcom, wacky hijinks of like, misunderstanding. Now we have to make the dinner party work. This one is a little bit sillier in just kind of the overall premise. But we got a bit more dark stuff in there between the helicopter, which was our first serious moment, the radio, which was our second serious moment, and the beekeeper, which was our third serious moment. Those were the 3 ones where like all the silly music and all the silly laugh track stuff all just is gone. The episode even also ends again on that voice. I was trying to listen to it to see if it was like a familiar voice. It's kind of hard to tell, but it doesn't sound like a voice you've heard before. I don't know, but I'm really looking forward to the rest of this series. There's 9 episodes that are coming in total. So there's 2 down, 7 to go. Another episode has come out, and I'm going to take a look at that tomorrow. And then Friday will be episode 4, and we'll be keeping up with those each week from there. So my guess so far is that either Wanda is inadvertently trapping the town, or the town itself is being contained and trapped, either to get information out of Wanda, to something involving like her children, I guess. And like the format of TV is the one that I don't entirely understand. I don't know if it's because it's something that maybe Wanda isn't very used to as a person, because, you know, there wasn't a lot of time between Age of Ultron and the Infinity War and now. And also she spent her entire life hating Tony Stark and wanting to destroy him for destroying her family. There's a lot like going on there. I'm hoping that we learn a bit more as we go. Geraldine is now at least vaguely aware that something is up. The other characters don't seem to notice for long, or they kind of unnotice. Mrs. Hart didn't seem to think anything was up after the choking incident, or Mr. Hart. Dottie didn't seem to think much was wrong after the radio incident went down. So there's definitely some like revisionism that's happening in real time there. So I'm curious what's going to happen. And we'll see how things go from there. Let me know what you thought about episode 2. Don't touch that dial down in the comments. And I'll see you tomorrow for episode 3. Bye.